It is now 10 o'clock. Good morning, everyone. I am Aaron Blumberg, Swiftland's Continuing Education Coordinator, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar, Tips and Tricks for Windows 10, and also to welcome today's presenter, Diana Silvera. Diana Silvera is the president of Navari Library Services, a company that focuses on helping libraries implement new technologies. In addition, she is a web designer and maintains websites for many small libraries and Swiftland. She presents regularly on implementing technology, best practices, and privacy issues online. She also works with libraries to deploy new technologies and develop new mobile and desktop websites. Please welcome Diana and enjoy her webinar this morning. Diana?
Thank you, Aaron. Welcome everybody to Tips and Tricks for Windows 10. I'm excited to be here, and I want to just, before we get into the nitty-gritty, say that chat box is so important today. The more you chat in that chat box, the more I think everybody will get out of today's session. So happy Valentine's to everybody, and if you could just chat, if you have not already, hello in that chat box so I know that you know where it is. Wonderful. There is not a point in this presentation where I'm going to pause and say, time for formal questions. I would like you to type your questions in as you have them so we can stop and review them. If we go too far, it will be kind of a lost thought when you have time for questions. So ask them when you're having them, and we can go back and look at stuff as best we can. So before we get started, how many of you use Windows 10 currently? Okay. Okay, Deb. Most people are saying yes. A couple of starting in August. You're receiving the update next week. You're not panicking at all, are you? I mean, that was a very stressful moment for me. And David says he does use it, but he uses Windows 7 as well. And what we're seeing is that the people that were the computers that we kind of ignored with Windows 7, they're getting older, and everything is moving to Windows 10. So even the most reluctant updaters are being forced to kind of move into the Windows 10 realm. So you're seeing this like second wave of implementation. So those of you who are currently using Windows 10, just on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with Windows 10? 0 is it just is awful and I struggle. 10 is I feel like I'm a pro. So Christine is an 8, Amy's a 4, 6, 0 to 2, 5, 4. So those of you that are on that higher end, I'm hoping that you can share some tips during this process as well. There's so much in Windows 10. I tried to kind of capture what I thought was the most kind of critical, and especially as librarians, the stuff that would help us explain Windows 10 to our users the best that we can do. So as we go through, if you're thinking, that's not how I use it, or have you thought about this, type that in the box. The more we share, the more we interact, the more all of us learn. And I love a good webinar when I learn something new, so feel free to share as we go forward. So, and I have to apologize for the screen. Adobe cut off my bullet points with the first letter of every word. So what we're going to do is we're just going to talk a little bit about fundamentals, really focusing on our vocabulary. Windows 10 has a lot of specialized vocabulary, and especially if we're going to be teaching people, you want to kind of make sure we're all on the same page. Then we're going to talk about some customization, settings you might want to review, and options. Then we're going to get into productivity tips and some tips and tricks in just general that are really great to help you save time and get the most out of Windows 10. And I'll tell you, I use Windows 10 all the time. Looking into this, playing with it, I always find more tips. I mean, everybody has just amazing tips on Windows 10. So let's jump right into it. So let's start with that vocabulary. If you're like me, if you're not teaching a class, you just call it the doohickey, right? Like, click on one of those things over there. And I don't know what they're technically called. So what you find is if you're teaching a class, doohickeys and thingamajigs and the blue thing quickly get lost. So as all of you know, when you're doing technology training, it's very important to use the proper terminology as we go through this. So thankfully, that start menu, they started with Windows 10, they took it away from us, but they brought it back. That start menu is that little, I'm going to use my pointer, maybe. Can you guys see the pointer? Okay, good. It didn't look like it was changing. So this little icon is the start menu button. And that's how everything, oops, so it's not showing right. Let's use this draw feature instead. There we go. So this little button down here, that's your start button. And that's going to really kind of show you, that's the main point, the green pointer is moving. I know, it's a little disorienting. It just has its own mind. How do I clear off the button? And it's just moving around randomly. Okay, so in that you have a couple things, and how you set things to be found is pinning. Nope, Elaine, you have not missed a lot. You've watched me struggle with the pointer. That's really, we're just starting on the start menu and we are getting started. And this life at a glance, which is this part over here, is where you see, this is where you pin things to. Pinning is sort of where you put your favorite things, the things you use the most, and you can customize that. And we're going to get into customizing a lot. So those are two very basic terms that you want to make sure, especially when you're dealing with training, that they know what you're talking about. And what those are called is not thingamajigs, but tiles. These tiles can be highly customized as we walk through it. And you have a lot of screens. And one of the powers of Microsoft's Windows 10 is this screen integration. So we'll talk about that for a little bit. The lock screen is that first screen when they come in. And I always recommend to people that they set that up with a nice PIN number. And you can have different things. We'll talk about customizing this a little bit later. And we'll get a lot into these user accounts. But if you can see down here, you can switch logins, and we're going to talk about why you would want to do that, even in a home setup, why this would be a good thing. And then, of course, you have your desktop. Your desktop is your desktop. It's always been your desktop. But what Microsoft has done is create virtual desktops. How many of you who use Windows 10 utilize your virtual desktops? Dana, wonderful. Okay. David's tried it. Lots of no's. So what virtual desktops are is, you're probably like me, how many windows do you have open on your computer currently? I actually shut everything down for this presentation, but like I have, Dana's is 4. I've gone 6, Pauline, Christine's 2, 5, I've gone to 10, I've gone to 15. And as librarians especially, we multitask. We might have the website, we might have the ILS up on one screen. We might have all of this, and then if someone comes up and you go, I don't know where anything is, because how can I find it? It's on, I have 85 windows open on my desktop, and my desktop is not that big, so it's just lost. So what virtual desktops is how many of you have used that setup where you have 2 computers? You have two screens connected to each other. Okay, Amy and Jan have, Pauline has. So what virtual desktop is creating that environment. So each desktop can have a different application on it, and you can toggle between them, and then your screen is clean for each one, and you can pop between them. This little bar down here is your task view. And that task view, when you click it, it shows you everything that's going on. So someone comes up and says, I need to place a hold. You click that little button and you can look down and see which of your desktops is the one that has your ILS system open. Click it, open it, And you don't have to get rid of what you were doing on your other screens. You don't have to start minimizing things, closing things, trying to figure out what tab was on. You can have everything in a separate place. And you can easily add more by clicking this new desktop, and it just kind of spreads it out. So you can kind of keep each task in its own environment and work forward. So you can see here I have 3 virtual desks going here. I had my browser here, I had the presentation I was working on here, and then I had my son's presentation over here. So everything was separated. I didn't need to close things out. I didn't need to do things like that. And you can just toggle between those. Does that make sense to everybody? It's kind of a new concept with Windows 10. Okay, great. And now there is a lot going on the bottom of your screen. Any questions about virtual desktops before we move forward? Okay, great. So I just wanted to kind of, again, we're working on that terminology, and then we'll get into the funner stuff as we move through. Go down through this bottom screen and talk about the different things that are down here. Again, we talked about Start, and this is Cortana. Cortana is your artificial intelligence that is going to guide and help you and do a lot of stuff for you. And we're going to get into Cortana in a little bit. But one of the things I like about Cortana is I'm old. Maybe I'm old. I don't know. I don't like to talk to my computer. I like to just type. And so I like that I can actually just type into Cortana, but you can actually click on the little microphone and you can start talking to her. Maybe on your mobile device or your tablet, this would work a little bit better. Then, of course, your task view. And now these icons, we're not going to go too into them because they're just kind of customized, but these are my taskbar. And we're going to talk about pinning things to your taskbar. These are your programs that you use all the time, that you want easy access. Even this clicking Start is too much. It's an alternative to cluttering up your desktop. And it actually works a little. I think I find things easier, and I like keeping my desktop as clean as possible. So putting things and pinning them onto the taskbar is great, and we're going to talk about how to do that in a little bit. Next is your Connect. Connect, if you're using Skype or Outlook, you can connect to actual individuals and sort of have a chat window open with other Microsoft users. This is a great tool to use even within the library, so you can have communication going through all of your desks at the same time. That way, somebody who pops in and has a question about children's, the reference desk can type it, even going back between circulation and maybe some staff that's in the back to kind of create this communication channel for you guys. The next thing is there's a little caret down there, and that caret's going to pull up a whole mess of other programs that are running. It's going to show you your Wi-Fi management, your Bluetooth, your security, you have Defenders running, anything like that that's going on your computer. If your screen is touchscreen, you're going to have this icon. I know it's hard to kind of see it. It's a little box with a little square that has 2 little boxes. And basically, like my computer is touchscreen, if I click on that button, a keyboard appears on my screen, so I can start to type words if I don't have a keyboard. And then, of course, your dates and your times. And then this is the Action Center. This is where Microsoft will tell you what's going on. Do you have updates? Do you have unread things? And you can customize what appears in there. Did it update last night? It's going to tell you all of that kind of stuff in your notification center. If you have updates waiting and things like that. Any questions about these taskbar icons? Okay, great. Let's move forward then. And again, this is that notification center. I wanted to show it to you a little bit bigger so you can see there's a couple other things in here. And the slides will be available to you afterwards, so you can kind of look at them and really get a hold of it if you need to. You can change things to tablet view. You can change your Wi-Fi network. You can access your settings. And one of the things I do like about the Windows 10 setup versus previous Microsoft is that settings is everywhere. they have made it a lot easier to find this. And then airplane mode, so you can always kind of pop it into airplane mode if you need to. Um, Sometimes I like airplane mode even if I'm not in an airplane. If I'm just doing something and I don't need Wi-Fi, you can save a lot of battery that way. The next thing I just wanted to kind of pop into, this is in the settings, but it's a big, it's one of the really nice features about Windows 10. It's called the Ease of Access Center. How many of you Windows Pros have actually played in here a little bit? Okay, good. Good, a couple of you. So ease of access has a ton of ADA compliance stuff, and just in general, especially as some of us get older, a lot of really great resources in here. You can change the pointer size. So if you are, especially if you're demoing, you might want to come in here and make the pointer huge. So when you're teaching a class, people can follow along on the point with your pointer. It might even be good if you use a shared computer at the reference desk or something like that, so people can see what you're doing a little bit. And it can also change that cursor size as well. A magnifier, which basically you can zoom in on one part of the screen and make it huge. If you want to hear a tone when you're changing toggle keys, I have that turned on. It's for blind people, but I actually really like it because I sometimes hit things, and that way I would know that. If you have colorblind users, you can actually set up where it's going to change all of the colors, the backgrounds and stuff like that to make them a little more contrast. And then visual notifications for sound for the hearing impaired. All really great ADA stuff that's buried. It's not that buried, it's under settings, and you just click on ease of access to get to that. So it's really a good thing to go through and look at, because some of this just helps us as reference desk, as we're helping people work through things. And especially if you're teaching a class for seniors, this might be a place you want to kind of point them to so that they can kind of customize this stuff. It's going to customize mouse speeds and all of that kind of stuff and make things really work well. Any questions about the ease of access? How many of you are in ease of access? Okay, so it's under settings. So if you go to your start menu, the settings is right above the power button. You can get to it a lot of different places. And it is on the second column of your Windows settings. I'll have a screen later that has those Windows settings and we can look at that. But that's where it's under settings on the second row all the way to the right hand side. And of course, Cortana, we kind of mentioned her in going through the taskbar. But Cortana is one of Microsoft's biggest. It competes against Siri and Alexa and all of those other information groups. And Microsoft Edge. It has retired Microsoft Internet Explorer. If you are still using it, you need to stop using it and recommend to your users that they stop. Microsoft Internet Explorer is not being kept up, and what that means is it's a security vulnerability. It is opening you up to ransomware and malware and things like that, which we will get into later on. And I know some of you are saying, but my IT department, but that is so important because as ransomware, if libraries are getting targeted for ransomware in cities, it's a really an easy way to start knocking some of that out because they target those people. So Microsoft Explorer, you can see this is Edge, and it kind of has a really clean look. Internet Explorer has the old E on it, and yep, you can open Internet Explorer through Edge, and it's under the accessories in your settings. Jen is saying a gold circle around the E will help you know that you're using it. but I don't recommend it. Microsoft doesn't recommend you use it. There are some legacy programs that require it, and so they didn't want to quite get rid of it, so it's still there. But if at all possible, use Edge, and we'll look at Edge a little bit later and kind of get into how you can customize it. But it's a much more modern browser, and it works a lot better than Internet Explorer. Elaine, does that answer your question? I see some typing, so I'm just pausing to let everybody type. Nope, David, exactly. Microsoft is not supporting Internet Explorer anymore from a technical support standpoint, which makes it vulnerable. And this day and age, you don't want to be vulnerable. And the security flaws are well known, and unless you're doing stuff where you're fixing these security issues on your own, you're just opening your computer up to a lot of malicious stuff. So if you have, you're not going to delete Internet Explorer, but you can start using Edge, and we'll talk about some other browser choices later on today under productivity. So just a couple things. If you're training people on computers, you want to kind of have a little bit of a basic terminology 101 with them. What is click and drag? Because those are terms you're going to use. You might say the word operating system, and I know we're all saying, I know what an operating system is, but sometimes our users don't. And when you start off saying, I'm going to talk about this operating system today, they go, oh my gosh, this is going to be a really technical training, and this is too much for me. So you want to start and say, let me talk about what an operating system is. And maybe explain there's really maybe four operating systems in circulation right now. There's Microsoft, Linux, Mac, and Chromebook. And so and each of those has its own versions. So you want to make sure that they understand what an operating system is. So as you start to talk about Windows 10, they understand what we're talking about. Folders, applications, a browser, all of these sort of basic terms you want to start with before you jump right into it. It will help explain what's going on and help people not feel like they're lagging. And never assume just because someone doesn't ask a question that they know what all of this is. A lot of times, especially in workshops, people don't feel comfortable saying, I don't understand what you're talking about when you talk about a browser. Exactly, Elaine. And I didn't say that when I said Edge. Edge is a browser. A browser is how you browse or look at the internet. So you have a couple choices on your computer. You have Edge, you might have Chrome, and you might have Firefox. If you have a Mac, you might have Safari. And those are the ways that you look at the internet. And so you need to have a browser. All programs come with one, but it might not be the one that you want to use. So Windows 10 is debuted the new browser, Edge. Does that make sense, Elaine? Okay, great. And Microsoft has, and you see this is kind of mimicking Chromebooks and Macs, but they've sort of all moved this direction. Instead of just randomly downloading stuff off the internet, they have a Microsoft Store, which is an app store where you can purchase programs, download things for free, and we'll talk about the Microsoft Store in a little bit, but that's how you add functionality to your computer or specialized programs. A couple action words you want to make sure they understand. If you want them to minimize or maximize their screen, what does that mean? How do they do that? Snap is a term in Microsoft, and I'll show you how to do it in a little bit, but Snap brings the windows all the way to the left, all the way to the right, all the way to the top, all the way to the bottom. And what this allows you to do is easily add two windows, so you can snap one to the left, one to the right, and it will split your screen so you have two functionalities. You want to make sure they understand pinning, running and opening programs, And that enter, when you say and hit enter, they know what you're talking about. This will help move them forward and not get lost in your training. Taking that just a couple seconds in the very beginning, especially if you're doing a hands-on computer class, will help you with a lot of questions as you proceed. So you're thinking, how am I going to show people this stuff? I wanted to give you 3 resources really quick, and especially this first one. If you're doing a workshop with the public, vocabulary flashcards is a great way to start. It breaks these down and you can make a little trivia game of it, and you can move through them really quick, and then people have them for reference. Microsoft also has a really good dictionary, and there's a site called Interacting with UI Terminology on the Microsoft page as well. And those both kind of go through the different terminology and how to use these things very basically. Of course, the problem with the Microsoft stuff is if you're thinking, what is that square thing? I don't know what that's called. It's very hard to find it if you don't know the term to start with. So you introducing these things can kind of help lower that barrier a little bit. Any questions on just sort of the vocabulary? Now we're going to get into the fun stuff of how to use it. So Microsoft defaults this Life at a Glance section over here. So this Life at a Glance, it's sort of your quick stuff, the things you use all the time. What are you doing with it? And this is completely customizable. When you right-click on your mouse on one of these, you get this little menu. The first thing is you can unpin it. If it's something you don't use, I don't use groove music, got rid of it. I don't have to look at it every time I log in. I can have this especially for me. The next thing is resize. If it's something I use all the time, I might want it to be a giant tile where I can see it easily, I can click on it. This is especially good for seniors because maybe they only use 2 or 3 programs. This way the buttons are really big, they're easy for them to access, they don't need a lot of the other stuff. And then you can move them. You can just click move and you can pull them around and reorder them in the way that you're going to use them and get rid of the ones that you don't. You can also turn on and turn off live tile. Live tile, some things have it, some things don't. I have mostly live tile turned off because it bothers me. But live tile is like if you had an icon for news, it might flash the newest news to you right there on the tile so you don't have to click on it. It also works with pictures and some gaming apps as well. I see some people typing in questions. What questions do you have? How do you get rid of a tile? So basically, you can unpin it from start. So you right click, I'm showing you on my mouse if you can see me, but I would come over here. I would click on maybe the calendar, and I'm going to right click on it, and this little menu comes up, and unpin from start is the first option, and you're just going to get rid of it. Any other questions about customizing this? I see people typing, so I'm just giving everyone a second. Diane's asking, can you tell us what the life of the tiles are? Life at a glance tiles are. They're all customizable. So, for example, this is what I have on mine. Yours might look completely different. Yep, you can always add it back if you change your mind. So, I would right click on this one and I can get rid of it. This little menu will pop up. I can resize it. Maybe calendar is the most important thing to me. And I want it live because I want it to be telling me what's going on that I need to worry about. I can move it so maybe it's not the top thing, maybe it's the bottom thing. I can completely customize that. If I come over here to the list of programs, if I right click on Audacity, for example, it will ask me if I want to add it over there. And so I can add that. So I can make all of my, I can make this completely customizable to what I use. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, great, Yana. Great, Christine. Okay, good. So you really can, this saves so much time. You're not having to scroll down this list, find the, and things like, I want this Microsoft Store. The store is not under S, it's under M for Microsoft. So you won't have to think through those kind of things if it's in your life at a glance. What is Excel under? It's under Microsoft, So it saves you time in that regard. You don't have to try and guess what they're called. You can change, of course, your background. You just right-click anywhere on your background and click Settings, and background will come up and you can totally customize it. Just like any other of the Windows programs, you can have it, customize message, you can, colors, pictures, anything like that. One pro tip that you can do if you haven't thought about this is in PowerPoint, you can save a slide as an image. So you can create a slide that says anything you want it to say and then save it and as a JPEG, and you can actually put it as your background. This is really a great idea for some of your public computers and things like that. You can make actually some messages for your users come up. So you can make your own collage, whatever you want to do for your background. And this is what it looks like, and you can see I changed mine to green, which you see in the other slides. You can change color, you can change your lock screen here as well. Mine is the default, which Microsoft just pulls images from their server, and they're pretty, but you can customize that again to be a revolving set of images, so it can be a revolving set of slides that you have created and made images to promote services at your libraries. They do have themes, and those are kind of all put together, and they'll change all of the colors of everything from here as well. And this is the lock screen. I wanted to show you a couple other things on the lock screen beyond just the background over here. Down here, you can have it customized on what shows on your lock screen. Do you want it to tell you have email on your lock screen, or your calendar to tell you an event is coming up? All of that kind of stuff can be set over there. I turn most of that off. I don't really want anything on my lock screen, but you can have that turned on. Just think about privacy depending on what the device is. If it's your desktop at home, it doesn't really maybe matter. But if it's a tablet that you take places, or your Microsoft phone, you really want to think about what's on your lock screen. I was listening to an article, a story on NPR about a girl who found a device. It was laying in the bathroom, she found it. And from the lock screen, she wasn't even able to log in. From the lock screen, she knew where this person parked, what their next class was at college, their recent contacts, all of this stuff, because it was all on that lock screen. So you want to think about what's displaying on stuff that you're carrying around, and what can people get into without even logging into your phone, your devices. And again, this is that general settings page. Here's that ease of access we were talking about. And this settings you can get from the start menu, you can get from right-clicking on the background, and you can get to it from the notification center. So there's 3 easy ways to get to this section, and they've made it a lot easier to find stuff. You can always, and if it's not apparent to you where it is, just type in what you're looking for up here, and it will pull you into that section. Any questions so far? We'll get into some of these settings as we go through. Sure. Oh, sure. Diane's saying, where again can you get them? You can get this general settings page by right-clicking on your desktop, on your start menu. It's right over on the left-hand side, right above the Start Restart button. And third, it's at the bottom of your notification center. No problem. The next thing you want to look at, and this is again under that general settings, is your sign-in options. There are three main ways that Microsoft locks gives you the option in Windows 10 to lock your device down. The first one is password, which is fairly standard. The second one is PIN, which is a little bit quicker. So you have your password, you have your PIN, and the third is a picture password. This is probably the most tricky way, and it really locks your computer a little bit down. So you would log in, you would pull up your screen, and it would be an image. Maybe it's a face. And you would have to do a pattern with your finger on the screen to have that look, to have that unlock. And that is a way to really lock your computer down. I personally don't use it because I have like no memory for that kind of stuff. But if you're a more visual learner, this might be a really good way to lock it down if you have trouble remembering your passwords. And it doesn't have to be difficult, it just has to be something that you can remember. And the good thing with this is you do have backup. So if one of these doesn't work, you can say, okay, what was my password? And then you can kind of sit down and go through that. But all devices, you should have some sort of login there. Any questions so far? Okay, great. Let's get into some productivity tips. So the first thing you want to do when you are looking at Microsoft is really look at the Microsoft Store and customize some of your features. They have a lot of free apps. But I am going to caution you not to start just downloading 100 apps. Some things, if you can do it in a browser, do it in a browser. You don't really necessarily need an app for that. The more apps you have, the more issues you can have with your computer starting to slow down. We're going to talk about startup in a minute, and you'll see some of these apps can really drag down your start time when you restart your computer and things like that. So you want to kind of go through and really take some time to think about what you're downloading and do you need to download it through the App Store. But it makes it a lot simpler to find things than sort of searching the general web for stuff, and you know everything in the store is going to work on your device. So Adobe, playing with my lettering. So one of the first things you can do is customize Edge. We talked about the Edge browser that Microsoft now provides. And at first, actually, they had locked it down and said no third parties are going to access that. And they've given in because that was unrealistic. So there's a lot here. I would not come in here and start downloading every single extension. An extension is a little extra functionality that you add to your browser. But I did want to point out a couple that I find useful that you might want to think about in regards to productivity. So let's use our handy dandy mouse here. The first one on the first row is LastPass, and there's one password and other ones like that. Especially if you go across devices, use multiple things. A password manager helps you because it's not tied to just Firefox or just Chrome or just Edge on my work computer. It's called LastPass. I'm going to type that in here. And I actually pay for the pro version now because I love it. So it's a great. You encrypt once, it keeps all your passwords. Any device that I'm on, I can pull up my LastPass. It's on my phone, so if I'm on a public PC, I wouldn't really want to maybe log in to my LastPass, but I can pull up my phone and grab my passwords. It helps you generate secure passwords, and it actually does a really good security audit where it goes through your passwords and says, like, Diana, you have 152 passwords that are the same. You need to change these, and it will help you change them. I did that over Christmas one afternoon. I just kind of sat down and let it, and updated passwords throughout LastPass. You can use this as a shared system where all the computers within your library are using it, so that you have all of your institutional passwords auto-filling in for you, so you're not struggling with passwords and ending up with multiple accounts on the same thing when you don't need them. Pocket. Pocket is this little green arrow here. And like there's, that's great English. So Pocket, if you see something you like on the internet, you can click it and it stores the web page, so you can go back to it. You can tag it so you can find it later. What I really like about it is when you click to read something in Pocket, it gives you distraction-free reading, which means it strips out everything except for the article. So I downloaded, maybe I favorited an article on, top 10 security tips for 2018. On that webpage, there was video ads and flashing things and links and all of that stuff. And who needs that? If I read it in Pocket, it pulls all of that out, and I'm able to just look at the article itself. You can always click and look at the original, but it gives you a really clean reading experience. I see Elaine's typing a question, so I'm going to pause for a second. The other thing you might want to look at is there are some security. Norton has a free version. Windows Defender, something like that. Ghostify, where you can actually secure down. I like Norton because it looks at the websites and evaluates them for me on security. I can make my own decisions. It's not blocking anything, but like especially I have a younger son, and when he loves free video games, of course he does. I have taught him to look at the Norton and not click on anything that wasn't green. It gives me a little bit of peace of mind. It's not perfect, but it gives me a little bit more. Elaine is asking, is this going to start only better reading? Elaine, exactly. And what I like about Pocket is it's cross-device. So if I'm reading something at home in the evening, I can save it. If I'm at work, I can save it. And then I can actually sit down and read everything that I've saved over the week when I have a few spare moments. Okay, great. So again, there's a ton of stuff in here. I would really look at what you're downloading. If it's something that's useful to you and you use it, then go for it. But there are some things in here, like I'm just going to point out one and call it out. Honey, which you see a lot of ads for, it searches for coupons when you're browsing the internet, but it's also stealing, not stealing, but it's taking all sorts of tracking information and privacy information from you, and it slows down your browser. So besides the personal information, you want to think that through. So does Norton fix disk cleanup? Norton, the Pro version, I know has a disk cleanup in it. And yep, Sheila, Norton is on this list. It's right here. There's over here, Norton Mobile. And you can put that on the browser as well. I like Norton. That's a free version. You have the paid version, of course, that does the whole security for your computer. But it's a nice little free version that you can trust that's going to help you monitor stuff. Diane's a great question. You just unpin what you don't want. Sort of. We're going to look at that in a second. David, I'm going to skip Ghostify because I'm actually going to talk about it under security a little bit, but it's right here. And what it actually does is remove tracking data. So we'll talk about it in a little bit. So one of the things, as you download all of these apps, a lot of apps want to start the moment you turn your computer on. And so we're going to talk about changing these options. You're going to click right on your taskbar and then click on Start Up. think it's under Taskbar Settings. Under Taskbar Settings. And what you're going to do is go through here under your Task Manager and enable and disable all of these things that you don't want to start. It's not uninstalling them. It doesn't affect them. For example, my printer wanted to start up and start looking for updates and start doing all sorts of stuff right when my computer came on. Do I print that often that that's necessary? No. And it just was one extra program. No, Dana, this will save and this will change how your startup happens every time you start. So you're right-clicking on there, you're opening up your Task Manager, you're clicking Startup, and you can change this enabled to disabled. I have almost everything except for like the Microsoft programs that really need to run disabled on my computer. You can see on that list, it's almost all disabled. And only enable things when I click on them. There's no reason that Adobe needs, and Adobe is a hog on your startup memory. Or Dropbox needs to start every time I turn my computer on. So when I click on them, they'll start and they'll work and you won't even notice a difference. But if you don't need them, they're not running in the background, and that will help speed up your computer. I see Gracine is typing in a question, so I'm going to pause for a second. Any other questions about this? I see a couple questions coming in. So I disable, I don't need OneDrive to start every time I start. All of that stuff, it doesn't need to start until you're ready for it. Then you can turn it on. Elaine, you can disable it in your startup because when you need it, you can run it. You don't need to have it running all the time in the background. It does speed up your computer, and one of the things you notice when you have a computer for a long time, especially a Windows machine, is that it starts to take longer and longer to restart. And this is one of the reasons. This is one of the main reasons, because every program you've added starts to run on startup, and it slowly bogs everything down. So again, some things that you want to slow. Gaming clients. My son, I mentioned, is a gamer, and I turn all of his gaming stuff off. He can turn it on when he wants. He doesn't need it to start beginning. Chat applications, the printer, cloud storage, those are the usual culprits, sort of, that you want to look at. In general, if you want to start, you go back into that settings. Christine, you don't even have to go back in there. They'll still be there. They'll be on your start menu. They'll be on your pin. They'll be on your taskbar. You just click on them and start them. So, for example, if I was in this, if I had disabled Firefox from starting on startup, it's still going to be right there. And it's still going to be in my start menu. So when I'm ready for it, I would just click it and it would start to run. I'm just saying don't auto start it for me. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Perfect. So you can change some startup stuff in general if you want to have things simplified. You can turn a lot of this off if you don't want it to start. If you don't want recently added apps, you don't want to show your most used apps. If you just want to simplify that menu, you can really get in here and sort of take stuff out and customize how it looks. Now, you asked earlier, just unpinning it, does that uninstall it? And it doesn't. It actually just hides it from your pin. So, if you want to actually get rid of it, there's two ways to do that to get to the screen. So the first one is if I right-click on something, I can uninstall. Now, Microsoft, like every other operating system, is going to tell you you're not allowed to uninstall stuff. So we're not going to bother arguing with them about those. You can unpin them and hide them, but for example, solitaire. It said it's a game. I don't want it. I right click on it and there is an option right there to uninstall. So I don't want to unpin it. I want to uninstall it, and that means get rid of it. You can also go to settings, apps, uninstall, and you can just uninstall. You can only do one at a time, and sometimes it's, I wouldn't say like once a month, but Dana, this is kind of this settings, apps, uninstall is how you get to it in the control panel. I don't think I added a slide for that. But you basically will just, it kind of looks like that task manager screen. All the apps are loaded. I recommend every so often, and especially if you're thinking my computer is running slow, looking through that the programs on your computer through the settings, apps, uninstall, and just deleting what you don't use anymore. We all download stuff and we just don't use it. So go through, I recommend that on your phones, on your tablets, go through and just have a clean out day. Just like you every so often have to dump your junk drawer and clean it out in your house, the same thing with your programs on your computer. This will free up memory. This will make you less vulnerable for security, because out-of-date programs can be a security vulnerability, and it will make your computer run better in the long run. So a few more tips and tricks. We talked about the Edge browser. I will be honest, I use the Edge browser when I'm preparing for this class and maybe a few other times. It's not a horrible browser. I personally am a huge Firefox fan, but you can always download Firefox or Chrome on any device. They are not always in the App Store, like they're not in the Microsoft Store. You need to open up Edge, type in Firefox browser, and open it and download it from there, or Google Chrome. The Google Chrome is probably the most popular browser out there. It's fast, it works, it has a lot of great development tools in it. It has a lot of great extensions, which are sort of like those added functionalities, and it's owned by Google. Firefox is owned by Mozilla, which is a non-profit. And as a librarian, I love that Firefox is committed to privacy, it's committed to open source, it's committed to a lot of those things. Yes, they can replace Edge. So when you download them, they'll pretty much ask you, do you want to get rid of, do you want us to be your primary browser? And you can say yes. And I'm going to show you how you can change that in the back end as well. But it's good to have more than one browser anyway. I highly recommend that you look at one of these to replace Edge, if you're allowed to do that on your computer. However, Edge has this one cool feature. I just told you I don't use Edge, but I do use Edge occasionally to pull this feature because I think it's great. Maybe there's a website that you go to all the time, like the Swiftland website, because you want to find out what the next great continuing ed program is going to be. So how you go to it all the time, you can have it as a favorite, of course, in your browser. And to make it a favorite, you would just click on the little star, and you can even add it to your toolbar that way. But that's like 2 steps. What if I want it in my life at a glance, because I go here so much. This is my favorite website. I can pin it to start, and I can actually pin a website. This does not work in Chrome and Firefox. You have to be in Edge to do this, but you can add websites that you go to all the time to your actual start menu. What websites might you use this for? You might use this at the reference desk for your ILS. You might use it if you are going to your database page a lot. all of that stuff, your online print management system, all of that stuff maybe is not an app or a program on your computer, but it's web-based. But you want to be able to get to it super fast when you need it. This is a really great way to use Edge to do that. Any questions about pinning to start? And you can see, I will show you, open with Internet Explorer. It's always an option there as well when you are inside Edge. If you are using a browser, and this actually works across all browsers, it's not just an Edge tip. It actually works in Chrome, it works in Firefox, it works in Safari. If you are not a mouser, using the Control key to do Control T or Control N will open up new windows or tabs. If you can't read stuff, you're sensing this theme. I've said that a bunch today. I'm just getting reading glasses. So if I'm like, I can't read this, I can just hit Control and then the plus sign over in my numbers, and it will zoom in for me and make that font huge so I can read what's going on. This is a great thing if you're going to all of a sudden share the computer with somebody else, or you're looking at something that is fairly small fonts or a very light font. So any questions about those, about your tips for your browsers? Okay, great. And all of those settings are in, of course, the top of your browsers or in your settings page. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Cortana because she does do a lot of stuff. And I say she because she does have a girl's voice by default. Here are just a couple things that she does. How many of you have used Cortana? Okay, great. Those of you who use them, do you use Cortana? Do you use her fairly regularly or not really? Dana uses her at home. Okay. Okay, great. So lots of things, as you can see, those Dana and David might have additional tips as well. You can ask it to play music. And, and sometimes, I'm typing and I'm thinking about stuff, and I know it seems silly to have to click back or do something else, but you can say, Cortana, play Tom Petty, and she will connect to Groove. You can have her connect to other services as well. Groove is sort of the default, which is the music manager for Microsoft, and it will just start playing for you. It will manage your to-do list. Dana's saying it helps with directions and weather. It will connect to a lot of smart devices. So I can say, Cortana, turn on the lights. I'm actually amazed she's not popping up right now. I can have her translate. One of the most amazing things to me with these online translators was over Christmas, we had a lot of family from another country, from Brazil, come, and the kids, no one spoke English. And the first, and they all pick up words and stuff over time. But one of the great things and Cortana was actually one on one of our phones, what we were using her for is we had Cortana the phone sit in between the kids, and the kids would say, Cortana, say this. And it would translate back and forth, and the kids were having full conversations using Cortana, which was fairly cool. Depending on, there's a lot of, with Cortana, you can add in sort of skills. This works also with Amazon, Alexa. You add these skills, and these skills give the ability to do that. So you would turn a skill on to order pizza. It's not just going to order pizza for you. If I say, order a cheese pizza, it's not going to work. But if I set it up in the back end, when I order it, I will get a pizza, which sounds delicious right now. Find recipes, reserve a table, for example. It will also take out my bullet points, so play games with you. So you can say, Cortana, play, flip a coin. David's saying Microsoft's website has a list of full action skip, and actually down this full list of skills down here on the bottom is a link to that page, and it will go through all of the different skills that you are able to teach her. And rock, paper, scissors. You can play all sorts of little games like that with her. There was a story one day I was listening to about who's funnier, and Microsoft actually hired really well-known comedians to do a list of jokes and stuff like that, and make smarty comments back to you. So just some fun that you can ask her. She gets really upset when you ask her about Siri. David's saying that Microsoft's website has a list of actions which Cortana can perform. Tell me a joke. Christine, the recording will be available through Swiftland if you have to leave, and the slides as well, so you can catch up, and you can always contact us for questions afterwards. So those are kind of just some fun stuff with, this is the screen for Cortana when I said, can you tell me a joke? And I thought it was hysterical that she decided to tell me a library joke. And, you know, and it uses voice recognition, so she is actually mimicking the voices, and she's whispering and stuff like that, which absolutely makes me crack up when a computer does that kind of stuff. Any questions about Cortana? And you can see down here, make me laugh. That was the question. That's the answer. If you click, I have my microphone turned off by default. You can have it turned on so that you can just walk in a room and start talking. And in here, you can train her. This is her sort of training area, these 3 little lines. You can go through and you can teach her what you want her to do, how you want to do that, how you want your to-do list to work, all of that kind of stuff to put it all together. If you're going to use her, you want to sit down and kind of play with this and work out, who do you want to order pizza from? You wouldn't want her to order it from the wrong place, so you want to kind of go through that. We talked about changing your browser earlier, and I wanted to show you where this lives, because there's a lot of other stuff in here as well. So settings, again, and then under apps, default apps. So this is sort of the path down here, settings, apps, default apps, and you come over here and it will tell you every app what the default to open it is, and you can go through here even further. So I can change my browser. Right here it's Firefox, and if I clicked on the word Firefox, it would tell me all of my options. This is really important when you have multiple programs that do the same thing. For example, if you have a JPEG image, do you want just Microsoft Picture to open it up? Do you always use Adobe Photoshop and you want it just to go straight into Photoshop because that's probably where you want it to go? Or do you have another app that you have downloaded that does that? All of those, anything that can open a JPEG will be listed here, and you can go through. If you're going to use the integrated email service in Windows 10, that's the default, but if you use something else, use maybe Gmail or something, you can come in here and change it. Any questions? The other thing you might want to consider is connecting to the cloud. The cloud has a lot of, the cloud is wonderful, but it has its own issues. But the cloud computing is a lot of places save their documents there. You might have a cloud at work where all of your shared documents go, sort of a shared drive that's not actually on your computer. Dana's saying the G drive at work. Yep. Or is that Google Drive? Exactly, both, right? I was like, wait a minute, that could be Google Drive. And I actually didn't include Google Drive here, but you could add that here. So a lot of cloud services will allow you can download them through the apps, the Microsoft Store, or you might have to download them from their native sites if they don't. What this does is create an automatic sharing place for you. For example, I'm a huge Dropbox user. I have Dropbox on every single device, and I actually do not save anything on my local computers. That way, no matter what's happening, I can always get to it through Dropbox. And I don't have to worry if my computer gets locked, if something happens to my computer. All of my documents are on Dropbox. Amazon Cloud, if you have Prime, you get free storage in cloud, so it's worth checking out. Microsoft itself has, of course, Office 365 and OneDrive, it's going to push you to use OneDrive. It really, really wants you to use OneDrive. The great thing about OneDrive is you can edit in the cloud Microsoft documents, which is kind of a great feature. And if you're working with a lot of people on something shared and the document started in Microsoft, you can, Gracine, that's a great question. I'm going to answer it in just 1 second. So you can actually collaborate in real time on OneDrive, sort of in that same vein that Google Drive does, where we can all be in there, we can all be working at the same time, but it's also a great backup solution at the same time. That is a great question. How secure are these? And they are pretty secure. They spend a lot more time than I do on security. They are pretty locked down. Dropbox, they're all HTTPS, which is SSL secure, which means they're encrypted sites. I will be 100% truthful here, though. I would not put like my banking information there, anything that had my actual account numbers for my bank. I also don't save those in LastPass. Those are the few things that I don't save on those kind of sites. But for the most part, 99% of what I have no problem sharing and looking at. I've never had an issue with those kind of things. Dropbox actually has all my photos on it now and saves them all, which actually makes me feel better than keeping them on my own computer. So they are very secure. With anything on a computer is not 100% secure, so I'm very cautious about sort of banking information, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I would feel comfortable putting it. I do put most other stuff there. Does that answer your question? Okay, great. So the other option in Microsoft, and I think this is especially if you're not using a cloud storage, you can actually set up a backup where it's actually saving your files on a regular basis. It's running through them under backup options under your settings, which is on that third row. You can actually set it up where it's going to let you keep a history of your files and things like that in a separate place. So it's worth setting up and keeping, especially if you do a lot of documents that have a lot of versions. That way you're not saving multiple versions. You can actually go back and kind of look at it and recover. And I'm not going to get too into how to do that. If you are interested in setting that up, Tech Radar, which is this link down here, will walk you through it step by step. But basically you go in to File Settings, and under File History, you would turn it on. It's going to tell you what you're going to set up a remote drive and turn it on. And you can always turn it off. A remote drive is sort of like thumb drives and things like that. You can get, that stuff is becoming so cheap, you can get a couple terabytes as a backup storage that's not cloud within your library or with it connected to your device. So we talked about keyboard shortcuts before. I wanted to go through a couple more that will give you a little bit more, especially if you're teaching users, they might not be aware of them, and they are time savers and a half. So of course, copy, paste, and cut, which is Control-C, Control-V, Control-X. And if you want to take a screenshot of your desktop, the Windows keyboard little button, and then print screen on your keyboard will take a print screen of it. Those are really basic things that you should show anyone that you're doing a computer class for. Those will help them immensely with getting troubleshooting, getting anything done. Now, we talked about that snap earlier, so I wanted to kind of get into that a little bit more. So this is, of course, the virtual desk screenshot. So if you press the Windows button and then your arrow right, your active window is the window you're working on right now. So for example, I'm teaching this class, so Adobe is my active window. If I did Win and the arrow left, my arrow key left, my Adobe is going to pop over to the left part of my screen. If I did Win right, it's going to go to my right. So what I can do is pop Adobe over to my right, some notes over to the left, and then Microsoft is going to have them split my screen for me so that I can see both. I can also use top and bottom. I don't find top and bottom as helpful for me personally. I use that left and right. To me, control sort of keyboard shortcuts are useful if you remember them. If you have to kind of think through them, then you might as well just use the settings or the button on here. You can click on the little taskbar down on the bottom to start Task View to open up your virtual desktops. But if you remember and you know what you want to create, you can actually use some keyboards, short keys to do that. And if you're finished with one, you can close it down. Did I see someone typing a question? I'm going to go ahead and pause while you, if you have any questions about those keyboard shortcuts. Okay, while you're typing, I wanted to talk about family and guest accounts. And you're thinking, why do I need a guest account? It's just here. I'm here. But you never know. People come to your house. Not that I don't trust people, but I like to have a guest account. That way, you know what? They're not in my stuff. They don't accidentally delete my files. They don't accidentally do something. So we create family and guest accounts. And these will help you separate. And basically what happens is just like on your public PCs, you probably have an admin login and then your public login. It creates that same scenario on a personal device. You might even have this at the reference desk, so each librarian has their own login and their own look and feel for at the computer, and they're not into each other's stuff by accident. It kind of keeps your browser histories different. It keeps all of that stuff separate from each other. So basically what you'll do is you'll come in again to settings, and then you're going to click on accounts, and then family and other people. And then you can add family members, you can add other people, and you can add accounts. So for example, I created an account for my son. That way when I log in, I don't have to mess with his video games. I'm not ruining his game because I'm using PowerPoint, or his friends aren't popping up to chat with me. I don't really want that. So you can, that's one of the benefits of having that. So when I logged in the reference desk, for example, Microsoft knows it's me, so my chat would reflect that. It wouldn't be somebody looking for somebody else. They would know who I am. A couple other things just to kind of mention, and this is a really good, maybe a workshop for parents, if you wanted to think about it this way. You can actually create for a kid in Microsoft, and the Amazon Kindle has something similar, but cross devices, it will lock you down by time. As a parent, they can come in and say what the kid is allowed to do, how long they can do it, what time they can do it. This is much more intense than I think the Amazon Kindle Fire lockdown for kids. It lets you really get into what is happening, what apps are being downloaded, what they're doing, what they searched. I know you're thinking this is such a violation of privacy, but I wouldn't do this on my public PCs, but as a family member, they might want to do this. Web browsing, what games, and each one I can change the restrictions that follow. And I can control things from sort of here. And if they want to download something that's not allowed, they have to, it will email the parent, and the parent has to give them permission. So just wanted to mention that it's a great way, it would be a really great parenting program to talk about it, because it can be overwhelming, and anyone with kids knows that electronic devices are 97 to 99% of all arguments in families these days. So I just wanted to touch on security, and then we're going to start to wrap up. This session has gone really fast. So we mentioned the ghostery earlier, and I just wanted to mention it, get a little more in depth with it. Ghostery is a way to lock down your Microsoft Edge. Firefox and Chrome have versions that do other apps that do this, but if you're using Edge, which is what we're focused on today, Ghostery is a great service. What it does is block tracking cookies. What is a tracking cookie, you might be asking. So, and all of you have probably had this experience. I go shopping, I'm on Nordstrom's or I'm on Amazon and I'm looking at a pair of shoes. And then I go to Facebook and those shoes are there. And then I go to just a random website and those shoes are, the same shoes are there. They sort of follow me through the internet. And what that is tracking cookies. There's an ad service that knows what I did and they're following me through my searches, placing ads for stuff that I looked at. They're collecting data on me. They know that I left Nordstrom's and I went to Zappos. They know what's going on because it's all in my browser and they're tracking me. So Ghostery whips out all of that code and doesn't let them follow me. And it gives me a little more privacy. It will also help you take out some ads and things like that so you're not as overwhelmed with all of that. Karen says it helps to use different Gmail accounts with each different app. Yes, that would help as well, keeping things private. I find it like amusing. You're like, why are you following me, shoes? But yes, exactly. And I do use the privacy mode a lot of times when I'm just browsing so that it doesn't start to track me on most browsers. I see Diane is typing a comment as well. This is actually in the Microsoft Store, and it's available for Edge. Utilize those guest accounts. I can't stress that enough. You want to make sure you don't have random people. I had a Microsoft phone for a while. Right now I don't have one, but I was using it. And I had a guest account on my phone. You know why? You're out someplace and someone says, can I borrow your phone? Maybe it's a stranger and they're saying, I need an emergency. Do you want to hand them your phone unlocked with all of every app known to man, your face, your bank, everything right there? No, I could swipe, log into the guest account, I could hand it to them, and they couldn't see anything. They could not access anything on my phone but the phone. And that was a great way to have my phone in public and not worry about someone clicking into stuff. What if they just grabbed my phone and ran? They couldn't get into anything without logging in afterwards. I know that Windows Updates sometimes has a bad reputation, but I can't stress enough the need to update. If you don't update, updates often are security patches, and those are what make you vulnerable to malware or ransomware. I'm just going to stop and say, let me tell you what malware is. Malware is software that goes on your computer and does malicious things. It might be buying crypto. I just read an article about some malware that was buying using your computer to buy cryptocurrency and manipulate markets. You might not even know that it's happening on your computer. It's installing viruses. It's spreading the virus amongst other people and stealing your data. Ransomware is when your computer locks down everything on your computer. And this happened to me at the library, so it does happen. Every single file on your computer is encrypted, and you don't have the key. You have to pay a kidnapper, right? Essentially, a robber, money to get your data back. And it is a huge issue, and it spreads throughout an entire network. And it can take down Charlotte Mecklenburg City actually had this happen to them a couple weeks ago. There was a case a couple months ago with one major public library. You see it happen in hospitals, and they're not targeted necessarily. They're just somebody clicks on a file somewhere, and that's where it comes from. So you want to install your updates. You want to use that modern browser. That's going to make a huge difference in just keeping you safe. And you want to install an antivirus. Windows Defender at the bare minimum. which comes with Windows. And it's actually a fairly robust system. If you don't want to do that, Norton's Malwarebytes, AVG, you want to look at something. Windows Defender will actually lock you down pretty good. Just go in there and play around and try and lock things down. No problem, Nicole and David. Aaron will get with you to make sure you have the whatever you need certificate-wise. And if you're teaching a class, here are 3 really good websites that give you internet security quizzes. Consumer Reports has a great quiz, and they're really fun to put up on a screen in the beginning of a workshop and work people through it, because people who, I think of myself as someone who's fairly informed, and some of those I was like, I'm not sure. So the Pew Internet Security Quiz also is a great way to introduce people to security, let them understand what things are, and it kind of gives you some broad generalizations that you can use to create your training on if you're doing that. I just want to go out a couple hidden features I wanted to show you. Microsoft has really done well with printing to PDF. It's now an option under your print options. That will help you save a lot of paper. And if you're sharing documents, PDF is the way to go. People can't edit it. The fonts will look the same. You can disperse it a lot easier. If you are sharing Microsoft documents, people can go in there and type. They can change things. If their computer doesn't have the same fonts as you, it can start changing things, and your things can get kind of messed up. So PDF, if you're going to share the document, is a great way to go. With Edge, you also can annotate your screen. You can take notes, and then you can save that file and share it, so I can look through things. I just wanted to point out you should register now for the Swiftland Library Staff Day, which is coming up right there on their front page. So you can kind of go through, mark things up, share them with other people as a link, and they can access them. If you want to record your screen, now this does not work on every Windows 10 computer. For example, my Windows 10 computer is a little old, so it does not like to do this. But newer ones that have better graphic interfaces will be able to do this. You press the Window key and G, and a little bar pops up, and this will allow you to take screenshots, record your screen, and all of that other stuff through the gaming mode. And that will help. So great way to make tutorials and things like that for your library and your databases. If you are teaching a computer class, a few just quick things you might want to share with your users or walk them through. Mousing skills from the Goodwill. Palm Beach County has a mouser size page. As we're moving to touchscreen, mousing is sort of a leaving art, but it's still important. Microsoft has a really good Office support and Become a Snap Pro tutorials that you can walk people through as well. So if you're not able to individually help them, you can kind of point them to those resources. So I covered a lot today. I know I covered a lot. There's so much in Windows 10, and we didn't even get into like Office and things like that. But what questions are you still pondering? What didn't I answer today, or what do you want to go over again? I see some of you are leaving, so I am going to put my contact information up on the screen, but I will stay here for questions. That slideshare.net URL is where the slides will, I'm going to post the slides there. Aaron will share them with you as well. Aaron will be providing a PDF version of the presentation later today and an email to all participants. Also remember to fill out your survey. Diane, the best thing to do is just get in there and play with it. I know it's intimidating, but there's a lot, but there's a lot that you'll know how to do it. Karen, that would be really fun. We can really get into the nit and gritty of it all. Great idea, Jamie, folders. and sort of managing our data.
All right. Well, excuse me. Thank you, Diana, for an informative webinar. Attendees, if you enjoyed this webinar, we encourage you to join us for Diana's next training, which is an in-person workshop on Thursday, March 22nd here at the Swiftland office, where she'll be going over the ultimate guide to digital marketing. As always, we encourage you to keep an eye on the Swiftland CE calendar, the Swiftland Facebook page, or look for your message from the various library listservs. Thank you everyone for attending. Have a terrific rest of your day.